Okay, so this is day two. It's about 5 o'clock, so it's been probably about 20 hours or so. So what we've made is um, should look like the cultures have like sort of risen up to the top. I'm gonna adjust this so you can see what it looks like from the side. So it should look something like that, where a bunch of like very thick um, buttermilk like or yogurt like consistency in the bottom, and then these little cultures have come up to the top. So it does make some sort of gas or whatever, they bubble up. So first, what I like to do is kind of mix them up a little bit so it's not like a solid chunk, and then you can actually see some of the gas bubble up. So this is actually going to have a really milky consistency, which is fine. But the individual cultures are actually going to be coated with like a white yogurt-like material. So the important thing here is you need to keep that liquid, and you need to strain it off into a clean glass jar, and you want to save the culture in the strainer. So I'm just basically going to try to pour it through, and then this is going to look a little weird, but you know, with clean hands, what you're going to do is you're just going to mix. I'll try to show it. You're just going to mix the cultures up a little bit, and it'll actually push some of the liquid through. Okay, so it's more or less going to look like the cultures are in like a very pasty like environment, but if you look up close, that's sort of what they look like. And you're basically trying to get as much of that, the white part of it, through, because that's going to be the active starter, or zakvaska. Then I'm going to pour the rest of that through. Mix it up. And where you can go wrong, sort of, is when you make this initial starter thing. If the culture is too active, or you have too much culture, the starter might actually go bad a little bit. But I think it's not as finicky as I probably think it is. But if it doesn't work for whatever reason, we'll find out tomorrow if it works or not. Then we know it was too much culture. Anyway, so there's usually a little bit left. So I just kind of mix that up, and just to get the last bit of it out, I recommend 2% milk. You don't lose that like creaminess for the buttermilk with if you were to use 1%. And definitely, absolutely not, do not use skim milk, because you're not going to want to drink the kefir or the buttermilk. So, you know, I just rinse out this little glass with more milk, and then, you know, pour it through, continuously rinsing that off. And of course, you have to stop doing this when you filled up the jar underneath. So now I'm gonna call it quits on those. I've gotten as much as I can do. I'm gonna set that aside for now. This jar that is not quite full, right? But it has that consistency, and it has that active, that does actually have active culture in it. It's just very microscopic. So these little guys are the colonies, but they're actually going to start, trying to make colonies from here, but it's always really, really slow, and it's not like you're going to be drinking these at any point. So take your spoon, mix it up really well. There'll be little clusters of the yogurt-like consistency. So you just want to mix it pretty well with fresh milk. Always use fresh milk, because remember, you are letting the milk sit out. So if the milk spoils faster than the culture can sour the milk to give you kefir, then you might end up with kind of funky, overly sour, not pleasant tasting kefir. But anyway, this milk that I have expires March 3rd. Usually I would say milk tends to go bad about a week after the expiration date. So I usually wouldn't let milk set out once it's gone past the expiration date. And plus we live in Ohio, so milk is dirt cheap. I'm pretty sure I just stopped my video. So I'm going to set this aside. And just like we did the other day, I'm going to put a lid on it. Just a little bit off to the side, just so it keeps air. All right. So then, I usually like to record the time. I have a little whiteboard on the fridge, so I just write what time it is, just so I have an idea. In the summertime, it's done in about 12 hours because it's warmer. In the wintertime, maybe 18, 24 hours, something like that. And also you can gauge on whether you prefer it thicker, whether you prefer it. Some people eat their kefir with a spoon. They just eat it like yogurt. I like to drink it because I like to chill it. I don't like to drink room temperature kefir. So the last thing we have to do is take care of the culture. So we're going to get some cold water. This is pretty much the same thing we did the other day. You're going to mix them up, try to get all that white stuff off. And you can just look at them, and if you see white pieces around them, you know they're not clean. But I don't see any more white pieces around them. So I like to get as much of the water off as possible, so I just put a paper towel underneath it, and it actually, paper towel absorbs all the water. All right, and then you're gonna dump these into another clean jar. And I just flip them over. All right, so that's your culture, and you're going to fill that up. You're not actually making anything with this, you're just storing it. So you don't need a lot of milk. I usually pour like half a jar of milk. And then I'm just going to close the jar. This is okay to seal a little bit more tightly. I wouldn't seal it so tightly that you can't get it open, and then you just put it in the fridge. Preferably a colder part of your fridge. So for us, it's the top of the fridge, or the top shelf. And that's pretty much it. I will hopefully return on day 3 and show what buttermilk should look like, and how to continue to make more buttermilk from previously made buttermilk instead of having to reuse the culture every time. All right.